Hello and welcome to The Security Strategist. I'm Richard Seanan, Chief Research Analyst at IT Harvest. I write books on IT security, work with IT security technology providers on their go-to-market, and I'm a trusted advisor to VCs and private equity firms. IT Harvest is an industry analyst firm that covers over 4,027 vendors in the IT security industry. Today, I am joined by Martin Bossart, CEO of Anapaya, to talk about cyber breaches and solutions like SCION. Martin, cybersecurity plays a critical role in ensuring the integrity and confidentiality of our data, and recent attacks have shown us just how vulnerable we can be. Before we dive deeper into potential solutions like SCION, I'd like to start by understanding your view on these recent events. You can pick the breach of your choice.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, there are many breaches, and we read like every day of new attacks. And the interesting thing is, I think we cannot really learn too much from them because they all work in a similar way, right? They use some vulnerabilities, or they use DDoS attacks to basically take someone offline. What we can learn, though, is that we are in a very unfortunate trend that more and more devices are connected online. IoT is driving the internet super fast right now. And these devices are relatively easy to attack and also easy then to be used as an attack vector again. And therefore, attack costs go down and defense costs go up. And that's a very unfortunate trend we are in right now. And I wouldn't really see that this trend is going away. I think that's what we see currently. We read about these attacks.
We're working on it, but it's like you say, things are moving too fast to catch up. Let's talk about the two things you just mentioned, IoT, which increases the attack surface, especially as connected devices become smarter. You know, at one point it might have been a thermocouple just reporting the temperature of a vat in a processing facility, but now it might have the ability to an IoT device might control that vat in the heater and things that could go wrong. And they're connected to the network and invariably get connected to the internet. How do people, and this probably gets into your solution, how do people defend those? You know, they're smart, but they're not smart enough to hold the endpoint security solution.
I think it's just a real challenge to protect those devices if they're exposed in the public internet as we know it today. Because basically, the moment you connect one of those devices to the internet, it is connected to the entire internet. So there is no real limitation. You can absolutely place a firewall in front of your door, but essentially you are connected to the internet, and the internet connects every dot with every dot at all times. So that's the superpower of internet, and in a way that superpower turns now slowly but surely into its biggest threat and weakness. And therefore, what we see is really we need to come up with a fundamentally new way of looking at the internet, how it is structured. And there are obviously many solutions to that and a lot of research around that. But I feel that the only really fundamental new approach is in an upgrade of the border gateway protocol router as we know it today. And in 2012, there was this suggestion of the SCION protocol router, which is a new kind of border gateway protocol router, creating a new kind of internet, but in coexistence to today's internet, which is, I believe, a fundamental new solution because it allows you to create isolation domains. It allows you to isolate, let's say, solar panels from the rest of the internet. It allows you to isolate medical devices from the rest of the internet. And with this approach, with this new kind of thinking of internet, suddenly the internet becomes far more powerful than it already is, because you can use the internet infrastructure as is, but you can create isolation domains for special purpose usage and limit the access of other threat actors to these kind of isolation domains. So this is a fundamental new way of looking at the internet. And that obviously then also needs a fundamental new way of routing. And that's exactly what SCION is all about. It introduces a new generation of internet routing.
Now, is it a good way to think of it, as I am, just as you're talking, as microsegmentation for TCP/IP, or is it something grander than that, an overlay on top of?
Yeah, I think it's a good picture, actually. But it is greater than that because it works inter-domain. So network segmentation usually works within a network, but you have a hard time if you want to do network segmentation in an inter-domain context. So SCION gives you the same capabilities. It allows you to segment in a way or create a new segment, but that segment works inter-domain. And that makes SCION so tremendously powerful because suddenly you can use the internet as we know it, but it offers you all the security properties we usually only know in closed networks. And therefore, I feel it will be a new level of internet, allowing the internet to unfold its superpower on the next generation, because connecting every device with every device, that is so absolutely phenomenal what internet did and what internet created. And it's now fundamentally important to make sure that this is scaling to the next 10, 20, 30 years, while right now this superpower starts to eat up internet itself.
Unlike a lot of proposals that have been made to, tear down the internet and start fresh and build something new, SCION fits in with the existing internet, and a single organization can adopt it without needing to wait for everybody to adopt it, like DNSSEC or Secure BGP for that matter.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very good point, because obviously when SCION was introduced the first time, a lot of people said, well, that's a great idea, but how can you restart the internet? It was in a way then the second wave of SCION where it was demonstrated how you can use this technology in coexistence with today's internet. I think it would be absolutely impossible to sort of restart the internet. That's just a stupid idea if you want to go that route. But what absolutely works to use the same infrastructure and add, let's say, a protocol that has similar capabilities but additional security properties, and use those in coexistence. And that's exactly what we are right now doing in small markets. And it's interesting how powerful this actually unfolds today's internet. Suddenly today's internet gets capable to run for very, very critical applications like the interbank, for example, the interbank clearing application, which is in a way heart and brain and soul and everything of the banking industry. That runs now in Switzerland on the SCION protocol using the internet infrastructure. And it's phenomenal how this network now profits from the resiliency and the multipath architecture internet offers. At the same time, it profits from the security properties of a closed network that you can then create virtually with a SCION architecture.
Is there any indication that any of the infrastructure providers are interested in adopting SCION, either, Google, Amazon, or even the backbone providers or the ISPs themselves, Comcast, BT, Deutsche Telekom? It seems like they would get a lot of benefit from adopting it, and they could cut their SOCs in half.
Well, we see both forces. On one hand, everybody would love to have an internet with certain new capabilities in terms of security or resiliency. And so obviously there's a great interest in deploying these new border routers, the SCION border routers. On the other hand, every disruptive technology also is a threat to existing solutions. So there we see a certain codec problem sometimes for certain products. But overall, I believe customer will create the demand, and we see this already happening a lot. For example, for utilities next to the financial services sector, utilities start to use the internet to operate really critical stuff like solar panels, like charging stations, like windmills, like, really heavy infrastructure is operated through the internet because everybody can use his smartphone and operate the solar panel. Now, these are attack vectors threatening very, very critical infrastructure. So these customers then obviously have a great interest in this technology and drive revenue and drive monetization capabilities for ISPs. And that then helps ISPs also to embrace the technology. And we see this force currently much stronger, but at the same time also if there is no customer applying this, let's say, demand, then there is also a certain product problem. Yeah, but this might also cannibalize certain security products.
I was reading how here in the U.S. there are thousands of water treatment facilities, the things that we rely on to get us clean water to drink, and they don't have any capability to deploy security tools, let alone monitor them and react if they're under attack. Would SCION be an option for, say, a federal agency like CISA to, facilitate everybody being in a segmented network, one that could protect against nation-state attackers?
Absolutely. I mean, it's designed for that. We have now the operational proof for several years, not on the scale of the US market, but on the scale in Europe. I mean, Switzerland is fully dependent now for certain critical applications on SCION, and it works since a couple of years. Very, very, extremely robust, because the protocol supports multipath routing. So even if you have failure of large magnitude, as long as there is still a path available, you don't even have a failover on application. So the concept of failover is gone. So absolutely, this protocol allows to be used for critical applications. Water supply is perfect. Electricity, but it is absolutely perfect. Transportation is perfect. All these critical applications that more and more depend on the internet, they obviously can only profit from such a new protocol. And interesting enough, we are right now deploying a new isolation domain for utilities, water and electricity in the Swiss market, and the second isolation domain for retail financial services. So all the payment systems from Apple Pay and all these kind of payment systems, they're all exposed in a way in the internet. And to put these kind of services in a retail financial services isolation domain makes it much more secure. And then obviously it provides digital sovereignty for a country.
Amazing. If somebody were interested in learning more or getting started down this path, how can you help them?
It's actually nobody. Once you know how, it's usually not so complicated, right? So it really needs a couple of core routers. These core routers are used or placed at the same place where you find BGP routers. So really on the edge of large networks. And then you need an edge router for connecting sites. So the moment you have SCION-enabled networks, you can connect edge routers, and then they can speak SCION through that network. And it's important to understand that it's really an underlay, so it works level 2 and 3. So basically, we're not touching TCP/IP, we're not touching the network as it is. So there's no real migration. It's really just adding path information, allowing you to isolate traffic on a routing protocol level.
And can existing core routers adapt to SCION?
Most of them can, yes.
Good.
Core routers are pretty heavy. They need to compute quite heavy stuff. They have these large tables where they have to check where traffic is coming from, where it needs to go. Now, since the path information is encoded in the SCION packet, the router pushing the data from A to B is a pretty dumb machine. So that can easily be a virtual container on an existing router.
Amazing. So, Martin, we've got a lot of solutions targeted at protecting distributed networks, IoT solutions, things like SASE, and what's the other one? Secure Service Edge, that are being proposed in some cases and rolled out in many others. Help me understand how SCION is different from that.
Yeah, that's a good question because it's really very different. I think most or almost all of these solutions, you can, in a way, think of adding an extra gate, an extra door in front of your house. And the big challenge really is that basically everybody can step in front of your house. So then you have to have all these measures to identify who is good and who is bad for you. Now, SCION works very different. SCION is path aware. So basically a packet, before it can be sent, there needs to be a path. And then the sender decides on what path this package is going to travel to its target. And the good thing is, the moment you offer a service to the SCION internet, you can decide who gets the path information. So you can do this like in today's internet. You can provide your path information to everyone, but you can also provide path information only to those participants you like. So, for example, in an SD-WAN context, you would only give path information to the other participants of your SD-WAN solutions. And the moment this path information is not available to an attacker, well, they cannot attack you because you're just not there. You're not reachable. And this is a fundamental new approach of introducing security in the internet's context.
Amazing. Thank you, Martin, so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on. Also, thank you to everyone listening. We hope you took a lot away from today's podcast. For further information on what we've talked about, please head over to anapaya.net, ANAPAYA.net. We'll be back next week with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all major platforms and follow the conversation on our socials at EM360Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn. And for more great daily content, head over to em360tech.com.